Good morning, everyone. I am Johnny Julie Adarabla Sabadoquia from BS Criminal Justice Education Section B. My first research topic is the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment in 1984. Torture and inhuman treatment can never be used under any circumstances whatsoever, including state of war and state of emergency. Torture has enduring effect on the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of its survivors, crippling or destroying their capacity to pursue fulfillment and happiness. In many countries, torture is used to extract confession from allegedly criminals or political prisoners, yet the use of torture to obtain evidence undermines a government's capacity to apply justice impartially and effectively. Torture is utterly inconsistent with basic human rights. In Article 5 of the UHDR states, "No one shall be subjected to torture or other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. As torture has devastating consequences for its victims, the international prohibition against it is absolute." The United Nations Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment entered into force in 1987 and currently has 158 states parties. Article 1 of COT defines torture as any act by severe pain or suffering which, physical or mental, is intentionally inflicted on a person for such purposes as obtaining from him to get information or confession, punishing him for an act he has committed or suspected of having committed, or intimidating or coercing him, or for any reason has based on discrimination of any kind, when such pain or suffering is inflicted by or at the instigation of or with the consent or acquiescence of a public official or other person acting in official capacity. The Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment, commonly known as the United Nations Convention Against Torture, or UNCAT, is an international human rights treaty under the review of the United Nations that aims to prevent torture and other acts of cruel, inhuman, or degrading punishment around the world. The Convention requires states to take effective measures to prevent torture in any territory under the jurisdiction, and forbids states to transport people to any country where there is a reason to believe they will be tortured. My second research topic is all about history of the rise of the child from Declaration to Convention. In the industrialized countries of the early 20th century, there were no standard of protection for children. It was common for them to work alongside with adults in an unsanitary and unsafe condition. Growing recognition of the injustice of their situations, propelled by a greater understanding of the developmental needs of children, leads a movement to protect them. All people from their birth to the age of puberty a child, they are all delicate, innocent, and dependent. They are not capable of making right decisions. They need good support for their family and society. Children occupy an important portion of every population. The future of the nation high depends upon the level of care being provided to children who are sensitive and receptive. Children are the future builders of their nation, and everyone has responsibility to contribute to their all-around development. The UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, 1989, recognized various rights for the survival, development, protection, and participation of children. According to it, children from the conception to 18 years of age have a right to name and nationality and care within a family, including good health care and nutrition. They also have a right to good preparation for their life, including a stimulation, education, opportunities for games and sport and activity. Children have a right to be protected from mistreatment or exploitation and to have special provision if they are handicapped or orphans. They have right to freedom of expression, to conscience and religion. Children and young people have the same general human rights as adults and specific rights that recognize their special needs. Children are neither the property of their parents nor are they helpless objects of charity. They are human beings and are the subject of their own rights. Child rights are fundamental freedoms of the inherent rights of all human beings below the age of 18. These rights apply to every child, irrespective of the child's parents, legal guardians, race, color, sex, creed, or other status. All children should have the same rights and should be given the same opportunities to enjoy and educate standard of living. Child may broadly classify as the rights of all children to survival, development, protection, and participation. Children are innocent, trusting, and full of hope. Their childhood should be joyful and loving. Their lives should mature gradually as they gain new experiences, but for many children, the reality of childhood is altogether different. Right through history, children have been abused and exploited. They suffer from hunger and homelessness, work in harmful conditions, high infant mortality, deficient healthcare, and limited opportunities for basic education. A child did not live a such life. Childhood can and must be preserved. Children have the right to survive, develop, to be protected, and participate in decisions that impact their lives. So, my last research topic would be 3 historic events of evolution as human rights laws that form our human rights today. I've chosen 3. So, the rights of every man are diminished when rights of a man are strengthened. When World War II had raged from 1939 to 1945, and as the new end drew near, cities throughout Europe and Asia lay in smoldering ruins. Millions of people were dead, millions more were homeless and starving. So in April 1945, the goal of the United Nations Conference on International Organization was to fashion an international body to promote peace and prevent future wars. The idea of organization was stated in the preamble to its proposed charter. We, the people of the United Nations, are determined to save succeeding generations from our scourge of war, which thrice in our lifetime has brought untold sorrow to mankind. The Charter of the new United Nations organized went into effect on October 24, 1945, a date that is celebrated each year as United Nations Day. By 1948, the United Nations new Human Rights Commission had captured the world's attention under the dynamic chairmanship of Eleanor Roosevelt. President Franklin Roosevelt Widow, a human rights champion in her own right, and the United States delegate to the UN. The Commission set out to draft the document that became the Universal Declaration as the International Magna Carta for all mankind. It was adopted by the United Nations December 10. In its preamble and in Article 1, the Declaration proclaims the inherent rights of all human beings. Disregarded and contempt for human rights have resulted in barbarous acts which have outraged the conscience of mankind. In the advent of a world in which human rights beings shall enjoy freedom of speech and belief, and freedom from fear and want has been proclaimed as the highest aspiration of common people. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. The following are the first 3 historic events of evolution of human rights law that form our human rights law today. So, the first one is the Cyrus Cylinder. The decrees Cyrus made on human rights were inscribed in the Akkadian language on mosaic clay cylinder. In 539 BC, the armies of Cyrus the Great, the first king of ancient Persia, conquered the city of Babylon, but it was his next action that marked a major advance for man. He freed the slaves, declared that all people had the right to choose their own religion, and established racial equality. These and other decrees were recorded on a baked clay cylinder in the Akkadian language with cuneiform script. Known today as the Cyrus Cylinder, this ancient record has now been recognized as the world first Charter of Human Rights. It is translated into all 6 official languages of the United Nations and provisions parallel to the first 4 articles of the United Declaration of Human Rights. The second one is the spread of human rights. Cyrus the Great, the first king of Persia, freed the slaves of Babylon in 539 BC. From Babylon, the idea of human rights spread quickly to India, Greece, and eventually Rome. There the concept of natural law arose, in observation of the fact that people tend to follow certain unwritten laws in the course of life, and Roman law was based on rational ideas derived from the nature of things. Documents asserting individual rights is the Magna Carta 1215, the Petition of Right 1628, and the U.S. Constitution 1787, the French Declaration of Rights of Man and of the Citizen 1789, and the U.S. Bill of Rights 1791 are written precursors to many of today's human rights documents. The third one is the Magna Carta. Magna Carta, or Great Charter, signed by the King of England in 1215, was a turning point in human rights. The Magna Carta, or the Great Charter, was arguably the most significant early influence on the extensive historical process that leads to the rule of the constitutional law today in English-speaking world. In 1215, after King John of England violated a number of ancient laws and customs by which England had been governed, his subjects forced him to sign the Magna Carta, which enumerates what later came to be thought of as human rights. Among them was the right of the Church to be free from governmental interference, the right of all free citizens to own and inherit property and to be protected from excessive taxes. It established the right of widows who own property to choose not to remarry, and established principles of due process and equality before the law. It also contained provisions forbidding bribery and official misconduct. Widely viewed as one of the most important legal documents in the development of modern democracy, the Magna Carta was a crucial turning point in the struggle to establish freedom. The importance of the historic events of the evolution of human rights law that form our human rights today is human rights reflects the minimum standards necessary for people to live with dignity. As I've said in the first, human rights give people the freedom to choose how they live, how they express themselves, and what kind of government they want to support, among many others. Human rights also guarantee people the means necessary to satisfy their needs, basic needs perhaps. So,
that's all. So thank you.